Well, welcome to the Dream Labs. I am Dr. Contrast, and we are live. And it's great to be back on board today. And so far, so good. And thank you, Antares and Jacoda, for joining forces here today. It's going to be a fun session. And before I begin to go any further here, I think we got some great feedback from the gang we're dealing with here. And it was interesting to notice that some of their commentary was the fact that they're extremely innovative material to work with, and a lot of time spent on trying to analyze, for example, what was going to take place in the next generation or the next series of things as we submitted some of these sketches. So I think I'm not disappointed. I think we did an excellent job, and we are going to do it. We're not done yet. Maybe this phase, and then based on what we get today, with your input, we'll kind of narrow it all down here and take it from that point into a submission. And interesting comment from them was that they'd like to see just pencil sketches, just rough sketches for next week, to kind of pass it on and analyze it from there. So, but I'll definitely honor that. But at the same time, I want them to sit down and maybe if we pick something today that's really you see a value to send on, I might do a couple of nice not finished renderings, but just some marker studies on what we're looking at for a final and portfolio piece or a presentation piece to put in the file for all the videos I've been doing here. So thank you so much, Dakota and Antares, for tuning in here. And I think the mission for today, I'm going to walk you through very quickly a real quick synopsis of where we were, how it all started, and coming down the last two laps to make sure we get this thing all squared away and have some good decisions made today. And it was interesting for me throughout the course of the last few days, too, looking at some of the selections we've dealt with from the last pass of sketches we were really working with, really looked at these things, and there was a real interesting set of circumstances mentally that I was going through about how to transfer some of the biomimicry pieces into the actual product itself. So you'll see some variations on theme and some blending of one to the other, for example, to get it to work a little bit more smoothly and not to be outrageously ridiculous in terms of getting into a lot of complicated pieces. And I think the number one thing for me, element for me and for us to focus on was, number one, to really keep it innovative, do as best we can to make something happen that is very unique in terms of being a different approach to interrupt or add a new disruption to the marketplace, which I think we will do. We've already gotten feedback on that from the gang that, boy, I never thought about that approach. For example, the rotating head, some of the shifting pieces, and maybe some sliding systems and the like that you brought up, Antares. So I think that's going to be really fun to see what takes place here today. And I'm going to go very briefly here. I'm not going to rush through it, but I want to make sure that we get some good feedback. And if you'd be kind enough to go through the process with me to kind of give me some feedback about yays and nays and likes and dislikes, a lot of but a lot of really subtle middle manipulations about shape and form. And I think, before I forget to, one other comment from them was the fact that we might want to introduce some sort of a handle to it because of the actual ease of holding it and gripping it. I'm really not a big fan of that if we can get by without it, but I did some studies based on that, so maybe some could go handle or handle less, and we'll see what takes place here throughout the course of the day. So this is how we started. I just want to go back to the square one some 7 weeks ago. We just did a whole series of empathic strikes based on just very simple line weight studies, thicks and thins, to look at some shape development. This is one of maybe 4 pages we did, but I think both Antares and Dakota, you guys had a really strong selection on putting these pieces together. And again, not to say that this is it, but again, this empathic thing is the emotional side of what that process might look like. And unbeknownst to me, by striking those elements together, I thought, it'd be interesting, going back to that, look at my notes, it'd be interesting if when you look at these sketches, that whole area up on top, this whole section up in here, and even in this one, implies a bit of a floating head of some sort, like a shaving system, but now it's more of a drill. It's a handheld drill. And we've not lost the fact that in that whole process of putting together some of the systems of keeping it very empathic or emotional, getting into things that were a very blue sky operation, very, very ethereal looking, very disruptive, which should be, very adaptable, articulating. All those elements we kept intact all through the entire process over the last 7 weeks and so forth. And now I think it's time to really kind of write down a process, to really kind of narrow it down. And based on the last session we had 4 good selections based on some of the sketches we did. And I just took the time to kind of take them a little further and develop a little more further some of the concept studies. So that's where we started, at the empathy side of life. Let's go here, get this out of the way. Let me keep this up. Then the next thing we did was we took this out for jury, as you all remember, gentlemen. And we said, let's look at these. A couple of selections that were made. These, let me do this. These were a couple of selections that were made from the empathy studies, converting them into line or some sort of a product form of some sort. And it was interesting to notice too that you fell right in place with this guy right here. This one here, it just fell right into place with some of that rotating head. We pulled that back a bit. There she is. It lines up on top there. You can see through that okay. That's where we are in empathy. And there we are with the actual form itself, just picking up some of those design lines right there. Interesting. And then secondly, over here, the same thing, the same set of process. Look how that fits right in there. It's actually part of that whole process we dealt with here. This was another variation on the theme that we might look at in terms of putting together some sort of a rotating sphere of some sort with a drill head encased in it, and the same thing here on this side. Notice the forms are there, but I just kind of abbreviated the head itself and put that cylinder or that sphere in there to kind of work with it to see what would take place. So that's for the first two. Then from that, we jumped right into some things, for example, into biomimicry. And let me pull these over here. You're encapsulating here. I think when I looked at it, the inventory, for example, from square one, when we started, I think I just generated just about 85 sketches of just thumbnail sketches in addition to this stuff, of getting some sort of a package put together that we can kind of consent on and get the job done. So after that pass of sketches, empathy, and refining getting the shape, that pencil study I showed you on vellum there, we went back in and did a whole series of sketches, and I went back in and about 3 or 4 sessions ago, went back into the whole process. Let's introduce a little bit of biomimicry and see what that might do in terms of developing a shape. And I think with the natural world and the physical world, and the Nautilus, for example, was one theme we work with. And these were variations on theme, picking up on this aspect right in here. And that was kind of interesting how that came together here for that shape, maybe reducing the size of the actual mollusk shell itself, but getting it into some sort of format here. And that was it. Let me screw this up. There it is. A little bit. There you go. Variation one, picking up some of this character here, some of the shell. And again, this would be a soft grip of some sort, and then a drill head inside that. Same with this one. Got a little more variation again, just stretching a little bit further. And again, that soft form in here, and something sort of like a horseshoe around that sphere, allow that thing to rotate and move, articulate for the drilling system. Then the last one was that same thing where we actually really stretched this shape up on top here in the mollusk itself, and stretched it and put the sphere or the ovoid down below with a grip system below. So those were the 3 variations on theme that we looked at from the mollusk. Then I went ahead from biomimicry series a little further with some of the shapes here, for example, the articulating head, showing where the rotation and spin would be. And the second one, getting into this guy here, more of a bulbous look with a very grip behind it all. And then the last one, kind of a turret type, where it's elevated as the drill system goes. And then after that, but this is the one that was selected. So I'll come back to this guy in a moment here. This one was selected from 2 weeks ago on the stream about maybe a potential look at developing more character and getting into it. And I'll show you the sketches in a few moments once we go through this whole thing. So this is from the Nautilus. The second one we did was a whole series of sketches. The second selection was, let me get my hand squared away here. The second selection was done from the mantis. So we had a whole series of sketches here with the actual mantis itself. Then looking at variations on theme, looking at that fracture to that portion to that portion. And in this area right in here, again, was very intriguing. Trying to pick up that same theme from the vellum overlay, for example. Let me just dig that one back up again here. Look at again how that picked up that same almost look in terms of right into there. I actually got this shape to kind of pull right back inside that envelope right there. Interesting. So we use that shape almost to pick up the same character. Again, look at this right in here. That example. There it is. Opening that up a little bit and getting that sphere to work inside that shape from the mantis. So let me see here, guys. Am I going too quickly? Follow me okay? Are you still with me? So we're going through a real quick review to get to the final 4 results in terms of what we might want to submit here from the package and so forth. So hold on for a moment here. What do you think, guys? Making sense so far? Going for the real quick review, coming back in and getting myself lined up for getting into some of the thumbnail studies we're going to show you in a few moments here to get this thing resolved. And I do think, too, it was really healthy to see that some of the people on the industry side were all excited about the fact that, boy, we never thought about this kind of stuff before. It's been more of a mainstream. It's got a handle. It's got a big battery pack down below. But how do we condense all that and making it very simple? So what do you think, Antares? With me, making sense so far? I mean, we're trying to go through a little bit of review, and you guys have done a great job of helping me through the process from week to week. So I definitely want to have you be involved in the voice. I'll hold on for a minute here. So it's going to be, the mantis was interesting. There was the actual form itself. Variation A, B, and C. Then went over here again and looked at some variations on that, going a little further with it, getting that head to work with here. articulating grip down below, and a bit of a handle grip here. Same thing here, opening up a little bit, and this was interesting to kind of restrict it a little bit. You wouldn't go north and south, but you could go east and west, kind of nicely with this guy. Then on the line here, this get a little further, a little more grip. It could be either a soft piece or it could be a handle of some sort, variation. And then the one I thought was a great comment you made last time we saw this, Santeros, the drill that doesn't exist. It's a stealth system. I just thought I'd try something a little more sheer and guttural looking. Anyhow, that was a mantis family. And then the last one we did, and although it was interesting to see how it all shook out here, was this seahorse. Interesting, maybe for a small time, a very minimal looking, maybe a small utilitarian household kind of drill for doing small pieces. Could be a potential, but it didn't have that replacement piece for this handheld drill that we're looking at in terms of being mixing materials, interchangeability systems. It looked a little bit too weak, but the selection was made here in this study right here from the horseshoe series, the seahorse series. But what I did with this one was integrate it in some of the sketches you'll see in just a few moments here to kind of put it into some sort of context. So, but again, same thing. Here was the actual seahorse itself, and then the variations of A, B, and C. Again, showing some little bit of handle work here based on the concept. It was just in case, all soft grip, the handle, but that could be removed and that could be all soft grip down below. But I just felt that the head system here, as you pointed out a couple of weeks ago, a little bit on the weak side and not really pertaining to what we're after here. So let me go back to this. Let's get these guys down and let's bring these back in here. These were the studies that were put together from this family. We selected, for example, this was the actual, I think this was the Nautilus series, or the actual pencil sketches or pen studies we did from that Nautilus series. Let me just get that back here, the first page here. Here's the Nautilus family. We took off on this idea here, put this on top of this. Sorry for the order. There it is. Let's do this together here like this is. What we tried to pick up on was this form right here, where there's the actual selection. There was the selection there. But that shape right there and that form right there was all integrated in this spherical system that began to look at, for example, handle or soft grip, and then this whole orbital piece or the drill head pivoted inside this shape itself, and then little variations on the theme. So that form right there, that sketch was selected. This was the one we kind of went a little further with, so that was part of the process. That's family 2. So I'll put these off to one side and come back and refer to it in a moment. This one was interesting. This sketch was 14, and it was really not, it was more of a case of a different separation altogether. So that shape, you'll see in a few moments in the sketches that I'll show you, the idea of having this being static, and yet this thing, these handles moving and it's stretching a little bit to give it some more grip or character to it, was part of the process as well. Now, we go back in here. This is where we're going to start. This is where the most important part of the beef is here. This was, again, from the Nautilus. Here we are. So let me go back in here again. Notice that same shape here, just to get this form. Let me get this out of the way. We don't need these any longer, I don't believe. Here we go. We're going to go down the line here. This is from, we've had 4 selections. We had sketch number 2, sketch number 14, Nautilus, and then the last one was the Mantis. So I'm going to walk you through here. These were done from sketch number 2, which let me bring that back out here. So let me get these guys organized here. There it is. So sketch 2 was this. So if you see the variations on theme here, if we get them up side by side here. So if you look at, there's 2, based on the whole idea of opening this up. And I went back in from this page, went back in and developed a series of a page of thumbnail sketches, a la like this, that really kind of put it all together, where we actually looked at what is this thing doing? Is it this kind of a look? Is it that in plan view? Did we have that handle, and did we integrate it? Notice this sketch here, this page here. Move this over just a touch. This page here really kind of opens this, kind of bulky looking. So I just kind of narrowed it down a little bit, stretched it a little bit more in this family of shapes. But that was a basic premise there for the Nautilus. And now this is the Nautilus variation and theme. And I don't know about you, but I think going through the process here, there were some interesting things that could be kind of unique if a handle, which is that came from the corporation. Yeah, we do have to look at that from a safety point of view, just in case. But we might not need it, but we should have something to submit that to kind of work with here. So that was part of the whole process. Let's put these up here. And looking at this, I thought that's where we started from this last sketch to this one here. A little thinner, a little more streamlined, and then again into a handle, which that started to look at some interesting things here. But the one that got me when I said, kind of put all this massaging together, was this little thumbnail study up on top here. It picked up some of this, it literally took this shape right here, this shape here, and just reversed it. I turned that right around and reversed it. Top right sketch in plate 2 has a nice profile. Yeah, this one right here, I think that's the one I really thought that was interesting too, and Terrace. And it had the opportunity. It didn't look like, for example, what I liked about that, let me rephrase that. What I felt was interesting about this little study, based on the initial sketch, was this study here. It literally looks like it's not as, this spherical, the orbit side of the drill head doesn't look like it's really, how can I put it, interruptive or foreign looking, alien looking. It has some sort of an integration to it, which I thought was interesting. But that's why I went through from that page. Let's go back again. Sorry for going back and forth. That's why from this family of sketches done 2 weeks ago, I spent time this week going back in and picking some of these forms out and reversing them, staining them up, stretching them to get some sort of an interesting look at here. So I thought this one had a lot of potential. So once I went through these thumbnail sketches, I selected that guy right there. I said, what if we go a little further with that and do this? Here's the thumbnail. Here are the variations on theme. Wow, I mean, that to me, what do you think, guys? This one had, I think, an enormous amount of potential. Just it looked like a drill. Notice we capitalized this a little bit. This might be more of a horseshoe. This piece here would only go horizontally, for example, 90-90. But if we opened this up a little bit more, and went back to that original sketch that we're showing you here, that still would not look foreign to me. So I need to get your input on that, guys. What do you think? Would you rather see it encapsulated like this, a la horseshoe up on top in the plan view, or would you rather see it like this, where it's really open and it pivots all the way around? And this whole thing can be flexible. That little spear right there can actually move with it and become part of the innovation. So I'll hold on for a minute here. This is where I need your help, guys. So heavily hang on here. What we got? It reminds me of a shotgun. This one here, or that one? The new one? Oh, Dakota. Reminds me of a shotgun. In what sense, Dakota? That's an interesting commentary. Number 2, in the shotgun. Is that favorable or not favorable? I'll just hold on here. Thanks for your time here, guys. I think, leaving it open. So in other words, this is more the case. This approach here looks stronger to you guys. As I said, looking at the thumbnail study from one to the other, either way, but I think if I take that out of there, I think there's something about this shape that looks much more pleasant in terms of putting the piece together. So I think if I'm hearing, for example, that in sketch number 2, this is the favorite to keep it open, I would gladly open it, maybe thin this up a little bit, or else and open this up a little bit more and give ourselves that rotation for a full 180. Super, that's good. All right, let's go that route. So I'm gonna put a note here that this one would be on 2. I'm just gonna put a little star by this one. So that's favorable. Boy, this is really helpful, guys, because once we go through this process today, I'm going to go right down and begin to do some really nice development pencil sketches and family thereof, and to put it all together for us. So that takes care of 2. Now, let's go on to number 14. Number 14 was interesting because, let's put that here. Let's bring in 14. I'll get my paperwork organized here. Very good. There's 2. So here's 14. This is where we started. 14 started with this, so to speak. This idea of having this whole idea all encapsulated here. Now, we might have to add here. What I want to be very honest about, straightforward with, is this. This might need to come back and extend a little bit more to give ourselves a power pack and some of the organizational work inside that. On 2 ways, nice, but I think it looks thinner without the extra lip around the. Yeah, I do too. I think. Let's go back just for a moment here, Terrace. Comment here. You're referring to this guy? A little bit more. This is a lot cleaner in terms of that thing, that lip not going around the actual shape like we showed here. The overall shape of the top sketch on 2A is nice, but I think it looks cleaner without the extra lip around the sphere. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, this extra, I think if we kind of trap that back, beautiful. I think that's where the winner is, I think. So thank you. Really helpful. Super. Thank you, guys, for clarifying that. You don't know how much I appreciate the input, because I'm at it here really focusing in on this thing. And I don't, as I said before to both of you, you see some things that I don't see, and very, very applicable, very helpful. So on to 14, another one of the sketches we picked at. There's probably some sessions made here. We don't think we can get by with a lot of power on this thing in terms of what we're looking at, but maybe to extend the spine in here and keep those pads moving. Some of the articulated, the grip would adjust or move. So there's 14. Here's page 14, first set of family of forms. Just looking at a plan view. Notice how I took that whole thing and extended. What I did is I extended this spherical or the round portion right down to add more body to give this thing some more grip or more substantial looking as a power tool. Now, in the sketches here, the facelift, the first pass of thumbnails, a lot longer plan view. Again, notice here, this is kind of interesting where we got that shape here with these arms that can actually fold out or else slide back and forth to give you more grip or more access to working with the actual piece itself. So that was the thumbnail studies from that family of shapes. This one I thought was interesting. Now, a little bit on the bulky side, but if we can get that to function a little bit more and really get some good streamlining here and open up that spherical area, that rotation head, we could have a really good problem to work with here. So there's 14, and there's 14A. There's a family of forms coming from that series of shapes into it. So here again, notice we've added in 14 from this thumbnail study here, we've added some of these forms. Now, I think what happens here, from my point of view, and maybe get your input on this, guys, on 14, I'd like to stretch that and maybe make this plan view shows me a lot. Just thin this up, stretch a little bit more, and thin that plan view up and let that thing work. It's almost butterfly looking. It's kind of interesting. So, what do you think? 14. Any comments there, guys? But I think when we go back to that, I might take this whole cap up on top here, this cap, and open this up so it has more of a spherical open look to it, so it actually can rotate. So that's a compromise we'll make with that. Much like this, I can see that going a lot more spherical, and then rounding it out and then adding that can still look very, very applicable from the point of view of being a really good looking hand tool to deal with. So what do you think? Helping, guys? 14. This is where we were. That's where we were 2 weeks ago. There's the thumbnail sketches we were looking at, and I really thought this guy had potential. And the plan view a little bit better here. Maybe if we stretch it a little bit more and open that up a bit more, we have more. This is interesting too. So there's a lot of variations in pockets we can work with between these two. So 14 and terrace. The concept of 14 is cool, but I feel that the design looks a bit squat and bulky. It doesn't have the impression. I agree. It doesn't have the impression that it could reach into an awkward spot the way some of the others. Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that's one of the reasons here brought up a little earlier too in terrace. If we go that route, I think if we narrowed this up and then stretched it, I think we have more of a feel of character of what we're after, much like we did with the last one we just looked at. So appreciate the concept. What about you, Dakota? You buying that same thing? In other words, if we kept it not so much, he kept it more like this, where it's much more streamlined and less opened up, it can be a lot stronger. But I think the basic premise is there. It's thinning this up and stretching a little bit and making it much more elegant looking and easily get in those small spots we're looking at. And especially when we change the whole front character to get this sphere to work, for example, let's add that right in through here. And we put that sphere up front, and then there's the drill. That could be, and then this can come right in and just wrap around it and give us that rotation process. Good stuff, Antares. Thank you very much. Really helpful. So there's 14, and again, it's family of forms, where we started, and then onto the actual form itself, little pencil sketches. And the rest, let me just point this out too, gentlemen. Today's really mission is to help me see what the actual the actual forms are going to look like. I'm not going to do any sketching. I just want to get a poll out here and find out. Yeah, we're in good shape with each one of these studies. Then I'll come back in next week and do some thumbnail sketches and again some pencil sketches based on the input you give me here today. And again, thank you so much. And Dakota, great. I agree with the advice. That's it. We're in. So let's do this. I'm going to mark this page right here, this little study, but put a note to myself here. We're going to thin it up and then thin this down. So that's going to go much thinner. And stretch it. Really helpful, guys. Good stuff. So there it is. Those guys. That's on its way. So those two. There's 14 on its way. Now, this got clumsy. I just didn't care for the Nautilus. There was a strange thing about that shape. I know that shell itself. What I did, let me go back to that form just for a moment here. when I got to this page for revisions, I went, okay, you know, maybe it's much more of working with this shape in through here. Let me just up this up on this. Maybe it's working more with this shape in through here, where we actually build something out of that form and it married into the form, into the actual head of the drill itself. That's where, this is when I went back to, and that's where I began to switch gears and reverse thinking. Instead of being so front-loaded, actually pull it back a little bit, soften it a little bit, and then come back in and use this shape right here, that insert piece, as part of the design theme all the way through. So that's what caused that change to come about very rapidly here. So let me go back in here. Here's a body of sketches for A. First pass at it, for example, looking at, okay, what do we do with this thing? How do we deal with this thing? There was something about that shape here, a little bulky here. I didn't care for that cavity at all. This is interesting, but again, I keep that very narrow and just keep that as restrictive as I possibly can. This started to make some sense with a little bit of shoulder on it, but again, it didn't have that presence about it, I felt. So let me go back here. There's A, and then there's study one on the Nautilus, but here's 2. What do you think? Coming right back in and doing some interesting things with that, I think. There's A, there's the actual thumbnail page, and here are the actual finished little thumbnail sketches. Again, adding handle graphics to it. Again, picking up that same shape on the actual Nautilus shell, that negative piece, and coming out of that. And here, I would go back and again, based on the input I'm hearing here today, is go back and put that rotation piece in there and keep that sphere, that rotation head intact, because that was very favorable in terms of from the manufacturing side too, the corporation. Again, notice a little bit of handle graphics and another handle graphic there. Again, interesting thing to look at here. So let me stop here. Any comments on number 14 here? I mean the Nautilus Plan A. What do you think? I think there's something to it here once we modify the front end of this thing. And again, the plan view, again, almost every incident we're looking at here, every phase change, all the 4 selections, this one here could be interesting in terms of stretching a little bit more, maybe dropping that hand a little bit more, at least, and then this could actually come back in and finish that form out and be very soft handled, which would be a good pencil sketch to do, study it. And again, get that sphere to come back up on top here. But I think this one had a much friendlier look in terms of being much more manageable and more tool-like or industrial looking than some of these sketches here. I mean, I really, that was a struggle. The Nautilus was a hard one to convert because there's so little to it. It's all round shell and very little soft material coming out of that thing. It's very different to look at. The direction I think could be interesting. What about you, Dakota? You still with me? You feel that 14, this guy right here, this upper piece is the one to kind of work with here and kind of refine a little bit for next week? I hope so, because I think there's some merit to that. I'm not really happy with some of the stuff we're doing here. The one sketch that motivated it was this one right here. And then that one was a help. I think that sketch right there was a real benchmark. Okay, let's keep that thing streamlined. Let's get a little more character involved. Let's put that shoulder in place so we have some guts to it. So I'm going to hold on for a moment here, get your feedback here. Gentlemen, and we go on to the next phase here. Really good stuff. Thank you so much. I'd like to see that too. We're going ahead. I'm taking notes here as we go down the line here. Mental notes about where to make modifications. So let's pick this guy right here. That's another one. It's going to go. That's the favor. Good deal. Put that aside. Now the last one. This was a real monster. I mean, I've gone through some challenges in my lifetime, but boy, this one was really really a tough one to deal with as far as the mantis, because it's so thin, and it's almost begging for guts and more character to it. But I didn't want to lose some of the elements in terms of putting it all together in terms of being mantis related, upper thorax, and then abdomen. Just interesting. Try to keep that intact so we got a good solid design sense here. So here again. What I did, let's go back to that mantis for a moment here. Sorry to keep going back and forth here, guys, but it's just a good reminder about what took place. This is the mantis family of shapes. This mantis family of shapes, notice what was happening was this element to that element. Now, there was the actual pick we picked. I took that same shape right there, this upper portion right here, and began to stretch it over the top, and then brought this underneath to develop this slider system we talked about some time ago, gentlemen. I think that's still that could be a very interesting aspect of this whole innovative, disruptive tool we're trying to develop here. So I think that, if you look at that sketch right there, now let me change the page here just for a moment so I can overlap these guys. When you look at that, I don't know if this will work here or not. Yeah, let's do this, if this helps. I'm going to sneak it up there as best I can to make it, okay. What happened was this. I took that shape and stretched it over the top, which became that form right there. And there's a little carrier underneath there. That could be all soft. That could slide downhill or slide back. This one was that I didn't care for this. That plan B was interesting. That could be a possibility. Again, it had a nice simple gesture to it with that piece underneath and floating underneath it. On the far left on page 8 or B. Page 8 or B. 8 or B. No, this one? And you like the smallest sketch. Oh, let's go back here. You talking about the mantis or the nautilus? Okay, sorry about that, guys. So we're talking about the mantis here now, gentlemen? This the variation here? Number 1 on the far left of the page. That's the smallest sketch. In Dakota, I'd like to see. Okay, number 1. I like the smallest sketch. So this must be the mantis. So I hope I've got it here. Now you talk about, is this the one you're looking at here? Hopefully, in Terrace in Dakota? Yeah. The mantis. So the smallest sketch, are you referring to this guy here, up on top? I hope that's the case, because that's the one I kind of looked at and said, these definitely get canceled. These are out. That did not make sense either. I think this one, or that variation to me, really start to really feel strong. This new page with the mantis as a header, I can't tell if that's a silent letter B or not. Oh, I'm sorry, that's a B. That's a B. Sorry, Terrace, very sorry. The sketch on the far left of the page. This one here? That little sketch? No. I'm just wondering if this is, I don't know if that's the one I've got here. Is that it or not? Sketch on the far left of the page. Trying to go back and forth here to make sure that's a highlight. I'll just point right to it. Is that the one we're after right here? Aha, very cool. So let me put a note by that. And again, that could be a variation on themes. But what I did from that study here, took that sketch, which is interesting. Now, would you buy, for example, Antares, if that becomes from the favorite, I'm going to take this shape and wrap it over the top of that handle a bit more to give us some of that character for power, source, packaging, and so forth. That might be but again, that system, the handle looked pretty good. So that's put a check mark on that guy as a possibility. Then I went from that one to, let's get these out of the way. That one to that page, again, this is B1. I don't know if they're still married or not, but again, this gets a little closer, maybe that sketch you just pointed out here. So I don't know if there's anything there on page B1 that makes any sense. It has a lot of familiarity as a power tool, but in that sense, I think, again, going back to this one, I think that's a great point about that sketch right there. That was the last one I did, too, and I thought, well, that's another variation off of this and this, which I moved on to B1, which is this guy right here. That same kind of character again, and I still think it might be better to hold that hood back and let this thing open up and become that rotating piece we're after. So that's cool. I think you can inject some of the more unique character into it. I think it's cool. There's that one. And then the last B2 page was this. This is almost like we're after here in terms of, this is what I really felt like. This whole piece here, gentlemen, would either pull forward or pull rearward based on needed for the slimness and the narrowness of getting this real small, tight areas that can be kind of interesting to work with. So there we are. And again, these little variations down below almost came back and picked up the character of what you're looking at right here, Antares. This one right here. These, actually, this last page is a spin-off of that sketch you've got over here. Let's kind of put these off to one side. Look at that sketch right. That one right there has some familiarity with this and this, but I think this has a lot more character to it. It looks more of a tool type. This does, and this would actually articulate obviously as with this, and this one would slide. So there's a lot of variation there in terms of, I think, the whole page of B2 is strong. Yeah, I do too. I think that's really, that could be a theme, and any one of these could be. Is there anything down here or up in this page that you think is favorable? Because I could do 2 family of forms on this last one with this mantis. I could definitely do a family of shapes on this pencil sketches on that variation. And then the other one here is this page right here. I think that's a great select. I think these have some real merit to it, especially if you turn these guys the other way. That could be really interesting form right there when you go sideways with that beauty. So it's got some guts to it, as does all of these, and this one does as well. But I'm still trying to think in terms of keeping it narrow, so it really has a chance to get into real tight spaces with that articulating head that we're after. And once the materials are set, that could be really fun. And last comment here about this page. All these studies, they're going to go out there, but I think the variations on theme we're really looking for were really interesting in terms of really interesting stuff. I may have to email you later about page B2. There's a lot to digest. Yeah, there is a lot to digest. So, but I think the thing that was interesting to me for today's setup was to really kind of come from all this very broad brush approach to conceptualization down to narrowing down to maybe 3 or 4 variations on a theme, which I think we've done here today. So if there's a lot of information there, please feel Dakota to maybe any information that you want to pass along with these 4 variations, let me know. Also, and Terrace, welcome anything you've got, gentlemen, because you've been extremely helpful putting this thing down into some sort of format to kind of resolve this thing and get some really good feedback in time to come. So that's where I am here today, folks. And I don't want to rush through it, but I want to do a good review in terms of where we were, how it all started, into overlays, and then into some variations on theme, and then the final selections from a few weeks ago that we selected from the biomimicry, and then the actual product itself. Really interesting. So anybody, any closing comments about the pass you see here? I mean, strong, weak, what do you think, guys? Making more progress? Again, that's not a beg of yes or no. I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing here, and you're getting the input from me that makes the difference. Helping? I'll just hold on for a moment here, and please feel free to comment as we go down the line here. And I thought we'd wrap it up right there, and I'll make some good notes here after we go off the air and start doing some development work for next week to make sure we really focus in on the pieces you picked and selected, and while I'm at it here. If you don't mind, guys, I'll just put this whole page down as one that looks good there. That one's good. That one's strong. That one's strong. And that one's strong. So, and again, and so is this. Let's start this whole idea. There. So there's 4 themes there from the mantis that really worked well. Interesting that became, it looks good. It was interesting how it all came back down to that biomimicry. It really helped to kind of put some pieces together for us here. So sorry for all the disorganization on the page here. But again, so interesting to kind of put it all together. And I think the thing that really is interesting to me on the topmost and leftmost sketches that are more interesting usually let's see. Are you talking about B2? The top one? Topmost and leftmost sketches are more. This one and this one. Is that good? That guy and that guy. Because I think if that's what you're calling out correctly here, and Terrace and Dakota, they really kind of mimic what that mantis was doing from the very beginning. Keeping that thread line, I think, is not to solve the world's problems, but it really kind of keeps the whole thread line intact about how we got from point A to point Z all the way through. Yeah, but the middle lower sketch looks almost functional. Middle sketch, yeah, this is probably the most functional, no doubt. However, with that variation in theme, this thing can actually pivot here and narrow this up and have the same kind of character. So we'll see what takes place here, guys. I mean, they're really helpful, extremely helpful in terms of putting it all together here. So let me just wrap it up here today by, again, so appreciate the fact that you took the time to help me go through the process here. There's a lot to take in. I did a lot of homework on these. I've done a lot of thinking about, okay, how do we keep the thread line together? To keep it a hand drill, it's modular. It could become modular. Adaptable, interchangeable in terms of pacing, and again, articulating, really interesting stuff. Yeah, it would be cool to see a hybrid of those concepts. Yeah, just to see what would take place, of what would happen if we took hybrids of these guys and said, what if we did this, what if we did this? And again, I think it's really been helpful too from the corporation's point of view. Very excited about the fact that they've never seen some of this stuff before, so that's a huge step in the right direction for us, guys. You've been phenomenal in that sense, and really very, very helpful. But I think the biggest thing is that really shocked me, not shocked me, but surprised me. They just want to see rough sketches. And the rationale behind that is once a sketch, they can bring it in and start to massage something. Oh, what if we did this? What if we did that? So it's going to be a long story to be told here, and I think that's exciting from the point of view of, and I know this gang very well. They're all former students. One's a director of design, phenomenal individual, known him for years, and he's really thrilled about the fact that we took on this challenge, and so am I. And I'm thrilled at the fact that you guys have joined this process. It made it so possible to kind of keep it neat, clean, and extremely exciting. So with all that to be said, I think I'm going to wrap it up here today, and I've got some good notes to work with. And again, so thankful for you, Dakota, and you and Terrace to join forces today. You've been very helpful to help me narrow this stuff down and make the selections. I think they're strong. And I think, let me just say this in closing. From what I've heard here today on all these sketches, you prefer to keep the sphere or the articulating open. You don't want to trap it with a hood of some sort. That should be open, but masqueraded by something like this, where you actually just cover it a little bit, but it's there. And then that's great too. The more we move this back, the more it can move up and down and east, and it can go north and south, and also east and west. I think that'll be great. So I mean, that really helps. And then again, getting some of the materials and so forth, we can illustrate that in some of the pencil sketches for next week. And I'm going to go through each one of these 4 variations and just do a nice series of really Prismacolor pencil sketches based. Yeah, I think that you got it. And Terrace flows in the body, terrific. Pencil sketches, a little bit of character behind it, and then we'll get that all resolved. But I think, in addition to that, I don't want to disrespect the organization, but I'd like to be able to take some of those sketches, maybe pick the best of the best next week, and do a nice color variation, maybe on tone paper, with a little bit of a side view and a little bit of perspective. So we have some documentation about what we went through for the last 8 weeks, or it'll be 8th week next week. So hopefully we'll wrap it up next week with element number 8, some of the fine-tuned sketches. And a quick announcement before we leave off, and let me get these sketches all organized here. There's B1 and B2, those are all put together. Let's leave this guy up front just for a little feature piece to close things out here. There's the mantis. Interesting thing too, coming in after we wrap up this program with this tool, I had a very interesting call from a group, and I've been working with for the last 10 years, 12 years, out in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. I've been part of the Corvettes of Carlisle for the last 12 years, and I go out there and do some workshops and clinics for the people that I work with. And they've commissioned me to do a whole series of the next generation of Corvette for 2030 to be illustrated for them, and then they're going to put it out an auction or to support their foundation, for the Amadeus Foundation, to support their father's death, premature death. So I'm really thrilled about that. So hopefully when we get past this one, we're going to go right into some of those pieces for Carlisle. And then I promise you too, and Terrace, after we get through that Carlisle piece, which will only about a day or so, one presentation, I'm going to go right into empathy for architecture. So I hope you tune in on that one, and I think you're going to enjoy it. I'm going to take a different approach to it. Another way of empathic sketch is in the 3rd dimension. So we'll let you see how that operates and take it into an architectural piece very, very quickly. So that's coming. The park's coming along. I mean, things are coming in really well in terms of programs to deal with that will be hopefully a help to you and to me. And I really, again, cannot thank you enough for you guys joining forces, Dakota, and also in Terrace. Big help. It's great to have a great set of professional eyeballs on this thing to say, yeah, that's good. Oh, don't do that. That's awful. And oh, by the way, too, Dakota, I have not forgotten our conversation yesterday. I will deliver that sketch we talked about for materials and so forth, if not by the end of the day, but sure, hopefully by the end of the week. Well, you have something to look at. And again, I commend you for what you're going through with that project. That's going to be terrific. So thank you very much, guys. I hope you have a terrific week. I'm looking forward to getting in here next Wednesday with some refinements here. And please do, and Terrace, you mentioned earlier about maybe sending me an email about some of the thoughts on some of this stuff. And you as well, Dakota, if you feel like you want to do that, please do so. Great stream. Always inspired to see you work through these challenges. Great. Thanks very much, and Terrace. It wouldn't happen without you and Dakota on board. I'm grateful for you guys, and I'm really thankful. Looking forward to your input next week, and we'll get some real fine-tuned stuff based on the pieces selected, and we're on our way. Dakota, thank you, and I have a speed form drawing. Yeah, good deal. Later, that's fantastic. I tell you what, really cool, Dakota. When I saw that, when I heard your explanation, I thought, wow, that's a stunner. And that's why I really recommended to not get so literal with it, go much more speed form. So it's much more of an empathic, adventuresome spirit form, speed form, be phenomenal. Thank you, gentlemen. Hope you have a great week. Please visit my website at drcontrast.com. I'll be adding some material to it hopefully in the next few weeks. Some of this stuff is going to go on, and I hope. And then also we'll get back into, for example, if you have any notes or questions, feel free to drop me an email at jim@drcontrast.com. I might not respond right away, but I'll make sure to respond to you because I have enormous respect for both of you and those of you who are watching here. So thank you for taking the time today. And above it all, so I always close these broadcasts off with this very, very truthful commentary to each one of you. Very, very simply put, never forget to dare to remember, to dare to be great, because you are. Thanks very much, gang. We'll see you next Wednesday. All the very best and take care. Thank you.